There's one sentence that can completely unravel a narcissist. Just 5 simple words, yet they pierce through their polished facade like a blade through paper. Decades ago, Carl Jung uncovered a psychological insight that forever changed how we understand the narcissistic mind and how we can disarm it. But before we get to that sentence, you need to understand why it holds such incredible power and why narcissists will go to extreme lengths to stop you from ever saying it. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn is more effective than any argument, more powerful than any confrontation, and more soul-crushing to a narcissist than public exposure. But first, let's go back to the day Carl Jung made a discovery that cracked open the core of narcissism itself. Jung taught that the human psyche works in layers, but narcissists, he said, create something artificial, a false self, a grand, inflated persona built to hide their deeply wounded inner world. According to Jung, this false self isn't just a performance, it's a lifeline, a fragile illusion they depend on for psychological survival. And yet, Jung found something shocking. Despite how carefully this persona is crafted, it has one critical weakness. There is a sentence, just one, that slips past all their defenses, bypasses every manipulation, and reaches the one place they can't protect. And when you say it, everything changes. Now, you might assume this sentence is some kind of deep psychological statement, some expert-level comeback. But you'd be wrong. It's childishly simple. So simple it's almost absurd, yet so potent it can break through decades of psychological control. And it terrifies them so much that, without even realizing it, they condition everyone around them never to speak it aloud. But what is it? We'll get there. First, you need to see how a narcissist actually thinks, because only then will you understand why this sentence is like a psychological ditto. Jung said narcissists live in a state of psychological inflation. They truly believe they're exceptional beings, above the moral and emotional rules that apply to others. This isn't just arrogance, it's full-blown disconnection from reality. Jung called it a God complex, a deep, unconscious conviction that their needs, their opinions, their desires matter more than anyone else's. And here's the frightening part. They don't know they believe this. This belief runs so deep. It feels like truth. So, if they think they're superior, why are they so easily shattered by criticism? That's exactly the question that led Carl Jung to his most profound insight. Here's what he found. Something that flips the entire narcissistic illusion inside out. Narcissists are walking contradictions. On the surface, they seem self-assured, even dominant. But Jung said that underneath all of it lies a secret terror, one so intense that their entire psychological system is designed to keep it buried. According to Carl Jung, every narcissist is haunted by a single, devastating fear. The fear of being average. Not just average, insignificant. Deep down, they're terrified they might be flawed, unlovable, and forgettable. Their arrogance isn't confidence, it's compensation. But here's where it gets truly fascinating. Carl Jung revealed that narcissists carry a buried awareness of the harm they cause. On some unconscious level, they know they're being manipulative, selfish, even cruel. But to admit that truth would completely destroy their fragile, inflated self-image. So they've constructed one of the most elaborate defense systems Jung ever encountered, an intricate web of excuses, blame-shifting, and justifications that allow them to remain the victim in every scenario and the hero in every story. But there's one sentence that slices through that entire psychological fortress like it's made of paper. And when you say it, something profound happens inside their mind. Carl Jung called it psychic collapse. But before we get there, Let's explore why all the usual strategies for dealing with narcissists fail so miserably. Ever tried to reason with a narcissist? How did that go? Jung explained that logic is completely ineffective because narcissists don't process criticism as feedback. They interpret it as an existential threat. According to Jung, the moment you point out their harmful behavior, their brain triggers a full survival response. They'll gaslight, twist facts, lash out, whatever it takes to protect their carefully constructed false self. Jung also observed that narcissists possess what he called selective empathy. They're not entirely devoid of empathy. They just deploy it selectively, only when it serves their interests. But here's the breakthrough. There's one sentence that forces them to confront empathy, even if just for a fleeting second. It's a sentence that makes their selective blindness to others' pain impossible to maintain. And when you say it, their entire psychological house of cards begins to shake. You might think it sounds too simple to be effective, but it works every time. People who've used this sentence report one of two reactions. The narcissist either erupts in a meltdown or flees the conversation entirely. Why? Jung said it all comes down to something he called empathic blindness, a willful refusal to acknowledge the pain they cause. They convince themselves that their behavior either doesn't hurt anyone or that any harm is totally justified. This denial is essential to maintaining their grandiose image. Without it, they couldn't justify their actions. They couldn't function. But Jung discovered something powerful. This blindness isn't permanent. It's a psychological habit, a choice they make every day. And there's one sentence that momentarily breaks that pattern. When you use it, you're not insulting them. You're not launching an emotional attack. You're not even focusing on yourself. You're doing something far more disruptive. You're making them confront the ripple effects of their behavior, something they usually go to extreme lengths to ignore. So what's the sentence? Get ready, because once you hear it, you'll never unsee the shift it creates. But I must warn you, using it will provoke a strong reaction. The sentence narcissists fear most is this: your behavior is hurting people. That's it. 5 simple words. But according to Carl Jung, those 5 words can unravel a narcissist's entire psychological framework. Here's why this phrase cuts so deeply. Narcissists build their identity around the belief that they're never the problem. They see themselves as the misunderstood genius, the victim of others' cruelty, the benevolent figure in a world full of enemies. So when you say, your behavior is hurting people, you're not accusing, you're not emotional. You're stating an undeniable fact, and that is what makes it so powerful. Jung emphasized that narcissists can argue with opinions, but they struggle when confronted with the collective impact of their behavior. They can gaslight one person, but not a mirror reflecting the truth of their effect on others. This is what Jung called the mirror effect. When a narcissist hears those words, they're suddenly forced to confront a reflection they can't control. For the first time, they see themselves through the eyes of others, and it creates a neurological conflict Jung referred to as cognitive collapse, a state where their mind can't reconcile the image they have of themselves with the truth you just revealed. They're left with 2 options: accept that they've caused harm, which would dismantle their identity, or completely deny reality, which makes them appear unstable. Either way, their power over you is broken. And something else happens, something even more surprising. Carl Jung described a phenomenon called empathy activation. Narcissists don't lack empathy entirely. They've just buried it. But this one sentence, your behavior is hurting people, cuts through their emotional defenses and reaches that suppressed part of them. For a brief moment, they feel the pain they've been causing, and according to Jung, That moment of emotional awareness is so intense, so foreign, that it becomes intolerable. At this point, most narcissists respond in one of three ways. They'll either lash out, desperately trying to shift the focus back to you. They'll shut down and flee the conversation. Or they'll spiral into a breakdown that exposes their inner instability. But, and this is key, none of those reactions mean the sentence failed. In fact, the more dramatic the response, the more effective it was. Still, Jung was clear about this. How you say the sentence matters just as much as the words themselves. According to Carl Jung, the effectiveness of this sentence comes down to how you say it. What he described as calm certainty. You must deliver it without anger. Anger gives them something to fight. Without sadness. Sadness makes you the victim they can dismiss. And never with pleading. That gives them control. Jung emphasized that the sentence only strikes its full blow when it's said like a plain, indisputable fact. The same tone you'd use to say, "the sun is setting," or "water is wet." Neutral, clear, inevitable. This neutral delivery is what makes it impossible for them to argue with. It offers them no emotional handle to grab, no weakness to exploit. But there's more you must understand. Jung warned that once you use this sentence, narcissists will go into overdrive trying to make you retract it. They'll use guilt, confusion, gaslighting, anything to make you question yourself. But if you understand how their minds work, you'll see it coming. Jung identified three typical and Carl Jung called this the beginning of a process he named delayed psychological processing. Even if they brush it off in the moment, Jung said this sentence embeds itself in their unconscious. It creates a tension, a clash, between their polished self-image and the undeniable reality of harm. That clash is called cognitive dissonance. Over time, this dissonance grows. According to Jung, it forces them down one of two paths. They either begin to adjust their behavior, or they isolate even further from others to protect their illusion. Strangely enough, Jung found that repeated exposure to this sentence can actually lead narcissists to change, not out of compassion, but because the dissonance becomes too unbearable to ignore. But Jung was clear, this isn't a miracle phrase, it's a psychological tool, and it must be used carefully. Carl Jung laid out 3 essential rules for using this sentence effectively. Rule 1. Never say it while emotional. Wait until you're completely calm. Anger, frustration, or tears will only give the narcissist an excuse to deflect or attack. Calm is your armor. Rule 2. Don't explain or justify. Once you say it, stop. Don't elaborate. Don't give examples. Don't try to make them understand. More words weaken the impact. Let the sentence stand on its own. Rule 3. Be ready to walk away. Don't stay to argue or wait for a response. Say it and leave. Jung discovered that the real effect unfolds after the conversation ends, not during it. This approach works because narcissists follow a predictable psychological chain reaction after hearing the truth. Carl Jung called this sequence the cascade of recognition. First, they freeze. The sentence shocks them, short-circuits their defenses. Their brain stutters as it tries to reconcile reality with the fantasy they've built. Second, their defenses surge. They'll lash out, gaslight, or plead, anything to get you to take it back. Third, isolation and rumination. They retreat, stew, and obsess over what you said. And this is where the real internal shift begins. What Jung found fascinating is that depending on how deeply entrenched they are in their narcissism, this process either brings a sliver of self-awareness or causes them to double down and avoid you entirely. But in either case, you win. Why? Because you've done something almost no one else has. You've shattered the illusion at the heart of their identity. You've gone around their defenses and spoken to the one part they can't ignore, their conscience. Jung discovered that even the most hardened narcissist knows, deep down, that they're doing damage. They've just spent years mastering the art of not thinking about it. But when you say your behavior is hurting people, you force them to confront the truth they've buried. And there's one more reason this works. Carl Jung called it the universality principle, the idea that this sentence works on every narcissist because it targets their deepest hidden fear. The fear that they aren't actually a good person. Beneath the arrogance, the cruelty, the victimhood, there's always a small voice inside, questioning, doubting, wondering if it's all a lie. Jung said this sentence turns that whisper into a roar, and that's why they fear it. Because once they hear it, they can never unhear it. Narcissists are drawn to enablers, people pleasers, quiet sufferers, and those who will either validate them or stay silent. But when you use this sentence, your behavior is hurting people, you're breaking that pattern. You're refusing to play either role. You're not attacking them, but you're also not tolerating them. According to Carl Jung, you're simply holding up a mirror to reality, and that's something narcissists simply can't bear. Jung revealed something profound about the psychology of narcissists. Despite their outward bravado, they're not powerful. They're deeply fragile. Their confidence is a mask, and beneath it is fear. Fear that others will finally see the harm they cause. Most people, Jung observed, fail to confront narcissists effectively because they try to reason with them or appeal to their empathy. But here's the problem. Narcissists don't function through logic, and their empathy is buried beneath thick emotional armor. The genius of this sentence is that it bypasses all of that. According to Jung, your behavior is hurting people works because it doesn't argue, defend, or explain. It simply states a truth so undeniable that their usual defense mechanisms become useless. But there's a deeper truth Jung uncovered, one that changes how you see narcissists altogether. They're not trying to hurt people. They're trying to protect themselves. Jung said narcissists are so focused on their own survival and self-image that they become blind to the damage they cause. And here's the kicker. That blindness is a choice, one they make every day. Carl Jung's revolutionary insight was this: narcissists aren't incapable of empathy. They've just chosen to bury it. Feeling the pain of others would get in the way of their self-centered agenda, so they shut it off. When you say your behavior is hurting people, you're doing something radical. You're saying, I see what you're doing, and I'm not pretending it's accidental anymore. This is why the sentence hits so hard. Jung found that narcissists often tell themselves convenient lies. I can't help it. That's just who I am. People are too sensitive. But your 5 words destroy those illusions. You're not debating, you're confronting. And that makes this sentence far more than a coping strategy, it's a tool for accountability. Jung explained that many people get trapped in what he called the justification cycle. Here's how it plays out. 1. The narcissist hurts you. 2. You explain why it's wrong. 3. They defend or justify it. 4. You argue their justifications. 5. And the cycle repeats endlessly. But when you say, your behavior is hurting people, you break that loop entirely. You're not arguing, you're naming the impact. According to Jung, when you step out of the justification trap, something powerful happens. The narcissist has no one to argue with, only the truth to face. And that's when real change becomes possible. But Jung also issued a warning. Once you speak this truth, the dynamic between you and the narcissist changes forever. You've now stepped out of the role of victim or enabler. You've become someone who sees clearly and isn't afraid to speak the truth. And Jung discovered that narcissists usually respond in one of 2 ways. They adjust their behavior to avoid losing control of you, or they cut you out entirely because they can't handle being seen. But in both cases, you win. If they change, even slightly, they've learned that they can't manipulate you. If they disappear, You've been freed without having to do the emotional heavy lifting. And here's where Jung uncovered something truly remarkable, a phenomenon he called the ripple effect. When multiple people begin saying the same sentence to a narcissist, "Your behavior is hurting people," it creates what Jung called a reality consensus. The narcissist can no longer dismiss it as one person's opinion or someone being too sensitive. When the same truth comes from several voices, their mental walls start to collapse. This is also why, Jung noted, narcissists work so hard to isolate the people in their lives, to keep victims from talking to each other. Because the moment people start comparing notes, the mask slips. But when people begin using this sentence together, it creates something narcissists can't withstand, a network of reality. Carl Jung believed that narcissistic psychology isn't just about toxic people, it's about all of us. We all have blind spots. We all struggle to see the full impact of our behavior. So this sentence, "Your behavior is hurting people," isn't just a mirror for narcissists. It's a mirror for anyone brave enough to look into it. Jung believed the goal isn't to destroy narcissists or win in some psychological game. The goal is to restore accountability, reclaim your peace, and speak truth that sets you and others free. Because the moment you say this sentence, you're no longer playing by their rules. You're rewriting the script. Carl Jung discovered that 5 simple words, "Your behavior is hurting people," hold incredible power to disrupt toxic patterns, to trigger real reflection, and to shift the power back to those who've been silenced for too long. And here's the final truth. The narcissist in your life is counting on you to never say it. They're relying on your silence, your fear of confrontation, your habit of peacekeeping. But now you know better. As Carl Jung taught us, you don't need to argue. You don't need to justify. You don't even need them to understand. You just need to say the truth with clarity, calm, and certainty, and let it do its work. Because truth, once spoken, cannot be unheard.